There are moments in life when we are told to move carefully, to wait patiently for the world to make room for us. But there are also moments when waiting becomes dangerous, moments when comfort becomes a cage. And I believe that we are living in one of those moments now. The world we are stepping into does not simply ask us to participate. It asks us to decide whether we will build our lives around what matters most or what demands the most. To decide whether we will move through life passively or whether we will take ownership of the power that already lives within us. And that is why today I want to speak to you all about something I call the revolution. Not a revolution that is fought in the streets, but a revolution that begins in the mind. A revolution that begins the moment you decide you will no longer live your life by default. Before I arrived here at Cheyney University, I made a decision that many people did not understand. I had been in school, moving through the traditional path, doing what many people would call the sensible thing. But just before my final year, I walked away. From the outside, it didn't make sense. Some people thought I had lost direction. Others thought I was being reckless. But what they didn't realize was that sometimes the most important decisions you make in life will not make sense to anyone else at first. Because sometimes saying no to what is expected of you is the very thing that allows you to say yes to who you are becoming. So during that time away, I wrote, I reflected, and like any writer trying to make sense of the world, I asked myself questions that life doesn't slow down long enough for us to ask. Questions about purpose, questions about identity, questions about what it really means to live intentionally. And in that process, I realized something. You will have to make decisions in life that people do not understand. And it is not always your responsibility to make them understand. But it is your responsibility to listen to that inner voice. Because your well-being depends on it. And in many ways, your destiny does too. And that is what I mean when I say we must learn to go rogue. Now, when some people hear that word, they imagine rebellion for the sake of rebellion. But that is not the kind of rogue I'm talking about. To go rogue is not to abandon discipline. It is to abandon passivity. It is the moment you stop waiting for permission to pursue the life you know you are meant to live. Because too many people move through life waiting for permission, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for someone else to validate the power that already has been inside them all along. But the world does not reward potential. It rewards audacity. It rewards those who are willing to commit, to persist, and to remain consistent even when the path ahead is uncertain. Which means you must learn to play the long game. Because meaningful lives are not built overnight. They are built the way a master plays chess, with patience, with strategy, and at times with risk. There will be moments when progress feels slow, moments when motivation fades. But that is why you must build rhythms that support who you are becoming. Because when motivation disappears, rhythm remains. And part of that rhythm is curiosity, a willingness to keep learning, to dive deeply into the subjects that ignite your mind. So, fall in love with learning. Hold your mind like a library. Your goal is not to know everything. Your goal is to never stop discovering. There's a poem I once wrote about Africa that says, "Vast fields of open green conceal your red. Stories of your gold and the beauty you behold are poems which they haven't read. You're graceful and humble. You carry treasures, yet are deprived. Your destiny? Returning home." And the more time I spent here at Cheyney, the more I began to realize something. I see Africa in Cheyney, a place rich with history, rich with brilliance, rich with legacy. And yet sometimes when something has existed for a long time, the world can begin to forget its significance. But more dangerously, it can begin to forget itself. And Cheyney does not need reinvention. It needs remembrance. Because when the first remembers that it is first, it stops asking for permission. Because remembering who we are always changes how we live. History has already shown us something important about freedom. Freedom can be declared. Freedom can be written into law. Freedom can be announced to the world. But it still must be lived. The courts ratified the 13th Amendment. Chains were removed from the body. But every generation must still confront another question, not about the law, but about the mind. Because the question that remains for each of us is this: when will your Emancipation Proclamation go into effect? And once that freedom begins to ring in the mind, everything about the way you live must change. Because the world that we are entering will offer many paths. Some will promise comfort. Some will promise security. But very few will ask you to become the fullest version of who you were created to be. Which means the responsibility will fall on you. To pursue with courage. To remain consistent even when progress feels slow. To develop the patience required to play the long game. Because meaningful lives are not built overnight. They are built decision by decision, discipline by discipline, day by day. So put yourself out there. Take the risks that curiosity demands. Dive deeply into the subjects that ignite your mind. And never underestimate the quiet power of commitment, persistence, and consistency. Because over time, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop chasing standards. You realize the goal was never to chase the standard. It was to become it. Become the standard. Build the systems that they copy. Become the bar. So as you leave here today, remember this: your future will not be built by accident. It will be built by the choices you make when no one is watching. The risks you are willing to take, the patience you develop to play that long game. And the courage you have to remain faithful to who you are becoming. Because the world we are entering does not simply need more talent. It needs people who are awake, people willing to think deeply, live intentionally, and free their minds before attempting to change the world. And perhaps that is what this moment is really about. Not simply the end of our education, but the beginning of our awakening. Because in the end, the revolution is not something we wait for. It is something we become. And it does not begin somewhere out there. It begins within. The revolution is the revelation.